conference going on in Chicago, of all places, about disinformation, which later came out and had Brian Stelter coming out and was asked a question by a freshman that asked him a question and stumped the dude. Stumped Brian Stelter to his core, which you hate to see it. But here's the freshman right here, and this is like the main topic of tonight, the main idea of tonight that I want to get into is that conservatives, especially people on the right, need to stop calling the media the mainstream media. They are not mainstream. There's nothing mainstream about CNN, MSNBC, CBS, all these people. When you think mainstream, you think like Joe Rogan, maybe Tim Pool, you think Daily Wire, you think The Blaze. Like, these are bigger channels. Maybe Tucker Carlson has a huge drawing, but stop calling these channels that aren't the mainstream, that maybe like back in the day they were considered mainstream, but no longer are considered that to this day. So here's this conversation with Brian Stelter of all people. Ready? Here's this question. It's beautiful.
Hi, thank you for coming. My name is Christopher Phillips. I'm a first year at the college. My question is for Mr. Stelter. You've all spoken extensively about Fox News being a purveyor of disinformation, but CNN is right up there with them. They pushed the Russian collusion hoax. They pushed the Jussie Smollett hoax. They smeared Justice Kavanaugh as a rapist, and they also smeared Nick Sandmann as a white supremacist. And yes, they dismissed the Hunter Biden laptop affair as pure Russian disinformation. With mainstream corporate journalists becoming...
Which, I just need to pause right there. None of what that kid said is not true. It's all completely true. And it takes longer than 2 seconds to look up on Google how correct this kid is, which is just incredible. And so listen to his response, because anybody with a logical brain, anybody with like an average, IQ or an average that just has conversations with people on the daily, they were asked this question and they'll respond to it. Even if they're wrong, they might go, you know what, we got these wrong, or I still don't think this is the case. But listen to his response, because it'll tell you everything you need to know about how people in the corporate media views the average everyday person, especially an 18-year-old kid who has a dissenting or wrong think opinion in their eyes.
Information. With mainstream corporate journalists becoming little more than apologists and cheerleaders for the regime, is it time to finally declare that the canon of journalistic ethics is dead or no longer operative? All the mistakes of the mainstream media, and CNN in particular, seem to magically all go in one direction. Are we expected to believe that this is all just some sort of random coincidence, or is there something else behind it?
It's too bad. It's time for lunch.
I'm not going to answer your question, you freaking idiot. But here's his response. Immediately, he gets uncomfortable and he feels like... And okay, so somebody who studies body language and studies mental things, I know that he felt uncomfortable by that question, because it's such an obvious question. And it's a question we've all been asking, and a question that we wish we could have the answers to. So the fact that this kid took the time out of his day to stand up and ask this question, the question that we all want to ask, but the fact that an 18-year-old kid decided to come up and do it is fantastic. And not only that, it made Brian Stelter so uncomfortable that he needed to make a joke immediately upon hearing the question. He couldn't even sit in the moment. He couldn't even think about it for a second. He had to make a joke because he didn't know what to do in that moment, so much so that he squirmed and he went, it's too bad, it's time for lunch. But continue to listen to this response, because I think it tells you everything you need to know about how they view you and how they view what you remember, because this kid pulled stuff back, stuff that maybe he doesn't even remember, Brian, but we all know and remember, and the reason why their ratings continue to go and why CNN Plus continues to shrink. I saw that in the second month that the CNN Plus service was even available, it was 50% off. 50. And I don't think that service is going to the moon. And I wonder what Chris Wallace is going to do. Is he going to walk his little tail back to Fox News? I guess time will tell. But listen to Brian Stelter's freaking response here.
You have 30 seconds.
No, I mean,
Brian.
there's a clock that says 30 seconds. But I think my honest answer
No, there's a clock that says 30 seconds, okay? So will you just lay off my back, bro?
There's a clock that says 30 seconds. But I think my honest answer to you, and I'll come over and talk in more detail after this, is that I think you're describing a different channel than the one that I watch.
That's right. You are the one misunderstanding us. You didn't interpret us right. You are the one thinking wrong. We are doing everything right. So if you come up to this conclusion that these stories are false or misinformation itself or disinformation or fabricated or whatever, it's not our fault. It's your fault. This is what they do. They assume you'll never remember, and they assume that you don't care enough to do research and look up information. They know you won't because they assume that you're too busy with your life to look up this information. And this is why they are a problem. And this is why more people watch independent places like myself, not myself, but like Daily Wire, Blaze, Tim Pool, even Joe Rogan. People trust them more because if Joe Rogan is asked a question like this, you got this story wrong, you got this wrong, you got that wrong, should we trust you? He would actually explain it. Where Brian's first response is A, to laugh because he feels uncomfortable, and B, to say, we're not doing anything wrong. You're the one misinterpreting what's happening, even though this kid has a logical question.
But I understand that is a popular right-wing narrative about CNN. I think it's important when we talk about shared reality and democracy, all these networks, all these news outlets have to defend democracy. And when they screw up, admit it. But when Benjamin Hall, the Fox correspondent, was wounded in Ukraine, the news crews at CNN and the New York Times stopped what they were doing, and they tried to help.
What does that have to do with the question? Absolutely nothing. But we'll just continue.
They tried to help him get out of the country. They tried to find the dead crew members. That's what news outlets do. That's how they actually do work together, to your question about sharing those kinds of connections and trust. We don't talk about it enough, though. We don't share that reality about how that happens. And with regards to the regime, I think you mean the President Biden. The last time I spoke with a Biden aide, we yelled at each other. So that's the reality of the news.
And then last time you also spoke with Jen Psaki, you said, what can I do better to help you out? But we'll let that slide because you're not actually answering the question as you continue. Let's continue.
Business that people don't see, that people don't hear. They imagine that it's a situation that it simply is not. But I think your question, it speaks to the failure of journalism to show our work and show the reality of how our profession operates. We have a lot of work to do, I think.
Okay, just for reference, listen to the question one more time because that answer is absolutely ridiculous.
Hi, thank you for coming. My name is Christopher Phillips. I'm a first year at the college. My question is for Mr. Stelter. You've all spoken extensively about Fox News being a purveyor of disinformation, but CNN is right up there with them. They pushed the Russian collusion hoax. They pushed the Jussie Smollett hoax. They smeared Justice Kavanaugh as a rapist, and they also smeared Nick Sandmann as a white supremacist. And yes, they dismissed the Hunter Biden laptop affair as pure Russian disinformation. With mainstream corporate journalists becoming little more than apologists and cheerleaders for the regime, is it time to finally declare that the canon of journalistic ethics is dead or no longer operative? All the mistakes of the mainstream media, and CNN in particular, seem to magically all go in one direction. Are we expected to believe that this is all just some sort of random coincidence, or is there something else behind it?
And again, his response is, you're just not understanding what's going on. We're not doing a good enough job of letting you know about the difficulties of being a journalist like himself. And then he goes on to this political spiel that has nothing to do with the question, which is like, of course, politics at its core, right? It's not actually being genuine. It's not actually having an honest conversation. It's just skirting the issue and hearing what you think, instead of listening to what people are saying, responding in a way you think people want you to respond. And so his idea is that we're actually good. We're on the same team. We just need to do better at trying to figure this whole thing out together and stuff like that. And also, not only that, your response to what's going on in the news is your fault. It has nothing to do with us doing anything wrong. And this is why corporate media is not your friend. And you need to stop calling them mainstream, because the mainstream ideas are these ideas that are obvious and truthful, but these people can't be trusted whatsoever. They're actors, whatever have you. Yeah, I mean, we can go into very nefarious things. We can go on to just like evil things. We could talk about that all day, but this is not, they are not your friend. They are not to be trusted, and they will do whatever it takes in order for their agenda or continue to stay on top no matter what. They'll say whatever they need to say, do whatever they need to say. It's just like when Don Lemon was being interviewed in Ukraine. He's like, oh, Biden didn't say that. And then he just went on to say exactly what Biden said, and he said he didn't say it at the same time. Like, they don't care. They don't care how much you call them a liar, because they'll just keep repeating the same lie over and over again to the point where you just start to almost believe it. But I'm so proud of kids like this that are willing to stand up and say, you know what? This is my moment, and I'm going to hold your feet to the fire, because they need to know, even the younger generations, it's not all just a bunch of white old men or white old people angry and mad at the world that they're the ones that hate CNN. It's 18-year-old kids in Chicago going, you know what? I might not be a Trump supporter. I might not be conservative, whatever. I don't care. But I'm willing to engage in truth, so much so that I'm disappointed in the fact that our journalistic integrity seems to be gone, or that it never was there, and it's coming to the light because of social media, because of what happened during COVID. I'm not one of those people who are just like assume that, back in my day, journalistic integrity meant something. I don't know. I think because of social media, they're held to a higher standard than they've ever been held before, and they can't get away with stuff like they used to, because the internet is undefeated. You can't just go around saying stuff, especially on nationally television shows where you get paid millions of dollars to speak the truth and provide real information for people, and you're not just a content creator. You're not just speaking on opinion pieces, but you're trying to give the truth to the world. And so you have 18-year-old kids calling him out, and instead of him having a moment of honesty, he flips it on him. And what's the best part of it is that his show on CNN is called Reliable Sources. And this is why people don't trust corporate media anymore, because they are no longer a reliable source. In fact, if I was using them to create a paper, I would trust Wikipedia far greater than anything on any of these news websites ever. Let me know your thoughts on this, because we need to stop calling them mainstream. They're not. They're corporate. They're nefarious, whatever words you want to use, but they're not your friend, and they're not to be trusted. They're like, use them to look up information because they have so much money to spread journalists all over the world. So that's the best way to get information. But then fact check them. Look at other stories. Use other sources. Don't just use one source. Use more than one source. I try to use multiple sources on every single news story I do, because I just don't trust any source enough to hold them, be like, you know what? Why would they lie to me? Well, maybe to grift and make money, because these are money-making businesses after all. They want your clicks. They want your eyes. That's why they speak in such crazy emotional language when they talk to you. That's why they leave you on cliffhangers right before commercials, so you stay engaged and locked in with them. This is what they want. They care more about your eyes than giving you the facts. And that's why if you look at news media, the one at the top of the very list is the one, A, they hate the most, and B, seems like the most honest conversation that happens in news media. And you tell me who that is. Because that guy gets called every name in the book because he's the best. But also because he's like Joe Rogan in many ways. It seems more genuine than anything you can find on corporate media websites. Let me know your thoughts on that. But I'm just so proud of this generation to actually hold these people accountable. And the world needs to see what they show. And I think this is the best part of it too, is that then this video came out a little later. Let me find it. That's what happens when you do a new show. So that clip started circulating all over the internet, and they started to get pretty angry about it. And so they went on and they had this conversation shortly after, which is just hilarious.
Talk about A to C. They now think that if only the media had told us about the laptop at the time, as the kid yesterday was suggesting, which I don't buy his theory, that
you don't buy it's a theory. Oh, what up, DEF CON? Let's face it, 5 to 6 companies own every news outlet. They work for their customers. The companies that buy their ad time. America is one of the 2 countries that allows Big Pharma to have exactly commercials on TV. They're all bought. Exactly. Of course they're all bought. That's why you have, there are even like times on Fox News where people have been talking about like Soros and stuff like that, or any of their people in charge, and they quickly shut down that conversation. That's why people like trust people like myself. That's why people trust like the Daily Wire. They're just like, oh, a corporation doesn't believe what we believe? Screw you. We'll make our own company. And that's where, and I think that's a good thing. That's what it should be. I want to turn on my news agent, my news site, and feel like I can trust them. Feel like they're not bought out. And I always hear pushback. It's like, oh, well then maybe the government should. No. Maybe we should subsidize by the government. Absolutely not. It's like to each of that is like, you can have corporations or the government, whatever person's paying your paychecks. Whereas me, if I ever get big, I will be supported by you, not based on like what you tell me what to say, just because you trust what I put out forward for you. Not that I'm just like trying to manipulate you to take your money and then make my commercials look well. I mean, even if somebody was like to sponsor my show ever, I would never just talk good, speak up for them because they are sponsoring my show. If they're a terrible company, who cares? I'm not gonna just like, you can't buy me. I'd rather live on standing than live on my knees, you know? But I think this clip right here of them getting mad about that clip circulating about making Brian Stelter look like a complete fool, they started to get really mad. And his response about Hunter Biden's laptop is just a joke.
We talk about A to C. They now think that if only the media had told us about the laptop at the time, as the kid yesterday was suggesting, which I don't buy his theory.
Why you don't buy the Hunter Biden laptop as a theory? What does that even mean? The theory that it's bad, or like it's so vague, and he's purposely being as vague as possible so you don't have to like hold him accountable. This is what they do anyways in corporate media. It's like as vague as I could just use emotional language and be as vague as possible for you to create an emotional response and be going, yeah, that kid was stupid yesterday. And you're like, well, why was he stupid? I'm not totally sure, but I don't know. This guy has a beard.
They was suggesting, which I don't buy his theory, that Trump would have won, but for the censoring of the New York Post.
Yeah, why would that have anything to do with people voting for Biden or Trump? Why would any of the information on Hunter Biden? Oh, I think a lot of it would have to do with it. And the fact that you say you just know for sure that wouldn't change the election, like you just know for sure. Maybe not, but maybe absolutely. And an honest journalist would say, I'm not sure, but it's definitely not good publicity, and it doesn't make him look good. And also, who's the big guy?
Trump would have won. And I think it's a preposterous counterfactual, but it's impossible for me to refute. In the same way, I cannot refute.
Right, so you're doing it right now, though. You're refuting it without refuting it right now. God, this is so disingenuous.
This bottle is keeping all the polar bears away, right? Do you see any polar bears? Right? I cannot.
That is like the dumbest comparison I've ever heard in my life. A bottle keeping polar bears away versus a laptop that has terrible information on that could link Biden to Ukraine, China, Russia, like all these places, and a son using Biden's name and Biden's sign off. I think like to say like that doesn't have, what a stupid comparison. But this is what they think of you, They think you're an idiot, and they say like, this is such an idiot comparison. This is such an idiotic question. And look, it's just like a bottle. It's not going to keep away polar bears.
Cannot prove the negative. And this is just it has now become.
Can we lock the doors just in case?
It has been wrapped into a much larger narrative, and so when they hear disinformation, they say, "Oh, you mean like Hunter laptop," which actually turned out to be true.
Exactly. And again, journalism today is, instead of admitting fault, admitting that there's a problem, admitting that you're wrong, it's to double down and push back harder. All right? And then here's another clip from the same conversation. Look, they're more concerned about how the public views them at the moment because an 18-year-old kid came on their stage and they're a preposterous pretend of authorities of information. They're the They're the bastions of our society. They're the preachers of our land. They're the truth tellers of the world. And yet this 18-year-old smug kid came up and brought up information that is all completely true. And we're just going to try to take it down in the best way we can by making them sound stupid, even though it makes them sound even smarter. If anything, they've done nothing but make themselves look worse, which I love. I want them to keep doubling down. I like this new liberal leftism where they just, when they realize they're doing something dumb, instead of pulling back, they just double down now. I'm for it. Keep doubling down. Keep making yourself look worse, because there are people out there with some logic that are hopefully changing. But I don't have hope for everyone. I mean, after all, they voted for Joe Biden. All right, so here's another clip from the same conference. They're very mad at it.
I think one darkly humorous but inevitable measurement of our success is that our disinformation conference has been the subject of disinformation campaigns on social media already.
That's right. Being held to the fire, having your feet held to the fire, being held accountable for the things you've said in the past, and somebody just asking you a simple question as to, hey, you've got this wrong, you got that wrong, and you got this wrong. Why should we believe you anymore? Is it dead? And his response is campaigns of disinformation. That's right. It's not that people are fact-checking you or holding you accountable. It's that there's these swabs of Trump supporter, white supremacist, people on the far right, probably pro-Putin people, anti-mask, anti-vax, whatever words you want to throw at them, you throw them all in a box, transphobe, homophobe, racist, God, misogynist. They are the problem, not us. Not us. Not us corporate media elitists that are speaking on stage. Again, just listen to the way they think of you. Again, this is all from a question of an 18-year-old kid, which I love.
I think one darkly humorous but inevitable measurement of our success is that our disinformation conference has been the subject of disinformation campaigns on social media already. So, yeah. Congratulate yourselves for that. That's
people aren't even
we'll
clapping.
Study that at next year's disinformation.
Yeah, we'll study it and make sure we'll vet the people that walk into this door. We don't want these people coming up here with obvious questions for some of our more fragile guests like Brian Stelter. I'm so thankful for this kid because it produces clips like this, which is just fantastic. I don't trust these people, and you shouldn't either, because when they are called, look, if you're caught in a lie, if you're caught misleading people, if you're caught purposely not sharing information, purposely looking over things in life, any human being like you, I'm just talking to you in general. If you show up to your job and you constantly tell white lies, you show up to your wife, your husband, your friend, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, your mom, your dad, and you constantly are lying all the time. And when somebody calls you out in that lie, if your position is to double down and then to mock them, you're a narcissist, psychotic individual, and this is evil to its core. And some people might say that might be a response of insecurities. I don't think the corporate media feels insecure whatsoever. I think they know exactly what they're doing, and they've been playing this game for so long, and they assume, I think they forget that the internet's a thing because they're not mainstream. They have no idea what's going on. They don't have their finger on the pulse whatsoever. But I love the fact that people are calling these people out. I just moved from Chicago not too long ago, and Chicago is one of the most liberal, craziest, poorly run, most corrupt cities I've ever lived in my entire life. The day I got to Chicago, a guy said, "Welcome to Crook County," and laughed about it, and I went, "What? What's that about?" And I was like too young to look into it, and I started looking into it, and I was like, "Oh my God!" But this is coming out of Chicago, so I think there's hope in the world for what corporations and news media has turned to. If anything, we'll just continue to laugh at them. But let me know your thoughts on this, because my opinion isn't the bee's knees.